I'm a sucker for remakes. I know, I'm part of the problem. Some people hate them, they're tired of them, but I tend to eat them up. Especially if it's for a game that I missed that I've always wanted to play. Even cooler so is when a game I never knew existed gets remade and that one catches my eye. This is exactly what happened when Live Alive, a remake of the 1994 Super Famicom game from Square, was announced during the February 2022 Nintendo Direct. Real quick though, before we get started, come on, this has to be a joke at this point. Live Alive? Live Alive? Live Alive? Who knows at this point, but it wouldn't be a Team Asano game on Switch if the title of the game wasn't a major talking point. As mentioned, Square Enix's Team Asano, alongside co-developer Historia, have brought me yet another HD 2D RPG to gawk over, and I could not be happier. The question is, does it stand up next to its completely new counterparts, or should it have just stayed in the back of the minds of some niche JRPG enthusiasts? One thing I've heard more times than I can count about Live Alive, both pre and post launch, is how unique of a game it is. And while I agree here, I just want to try and flesh out what the word unique means to me a little bit. Live Alive consists of 8 scenarios. Yeah, I said 8, go count the number of characters on your box, 7 of which you can pick from the start of the game in any order of your choosing. This freedom was super exciting for me. Do I try and play them chronologically? Do I play them in the order they appear on screen? Just pick who I want when? Does it matter? While it doesn't actually matter, I do think the scenario you choose first can either give you a very good or very bad first impression. There was one scenario in particular that, had it been my first, would have not instilled a whole lot of confidence in me going forward due to its slow start. Personally, I liked each of them and they each came into their own, but I did have my favorites, modern day and near future being some standouts for me. While each scenario has the same base battle system, they each act as their own little mini RPG with different gimmicks, unique music and voice acting, and stories that stand on their own. For example, you don't need to play the near future story before the far future story to understand it. This freedom was welcome and allows for everyone to experience the game in their own way. All the stories have charming characters and humor, and even some little reoccurring jokes if you're paying enough attention. One cool touch I like is the equipment and item descriptions are seen through the eyes of your main character at the time. Little things like this go a long way with me. This structure kinda reminded me of another HD 2D game on Switch, Octopath Traveler. And while I love Octopath, I prefer Live Alive storytelling method a little bit more here because while Octopath may have been longer and have possibly more depth in the story at times, the game forced you to segment each of the stories across the playthrough, giving you the opportunity to lose momentum and forget key story moments for characters. In Live Alive, you can get through a character's entire story in one sitting if you want. No need to worry about remembering something from several in-game hours ago or several real-world days ago. You can just sit down one evening and play through a nice, concise story without too much effort. These short scenarios can be a double-edged sword though, as some of them feel like great little RPGs I would love to replay, and some of them feel like little vertical slice demos meant to be implemented into a larger game. I would love to talk about some of these scenarios in more depth and what makes some of them special, but I feel like their gimmicks are better experienced fresh. It was a blast starting a new character story and not knowing what lay ahead, and even if I felt like some started slow or didn't capitalize on their quirk as strongly as I would have hoped, they were all enjoyable to me, and I felt like they all belonged. It almost feels silly to say at this point, but spoiler alert, I think Live Alive is a very pretty game. The HD 2D system seen in Octopath Traveler and Triangle Strategy, two somehow even sillier named games, looked better than ever here. One key reason I think it looks the best in Live Alive is the color choices. Both Octopath and Triangle Strategy were set in medieval times, relying on a lot of earthy greens and browns, with a color being used mainly in battle to make moves look cooler. In Live Alive, the setting is set across all periods of time and allows for more interesting set pieces and, by extension, more consistent, varied color choices. I mean, look at these menu screens. There's no reason a menu screen should look that cool. The game pops off the screen better than ever, looking like a dream if you're fortunate enough to have a Switch OLED. No surprise, being a Square Enix RPG, the music is killer here, and I really don't know how they keep managing to consistently pull music like this out of a hat and into their games, but they just do. Unique overworld themes for each character, unique battle themes for each character, and a boss track that has no right to slap as hard as it does supplement what I was seeing on the screen better than what I could have hoped for. The game is also fully voice acted, which is a welcome addition. I thought it was consistently well done. I'm easy to please when it comes to voice acting, so unless it's egregiously out of place, it works for me. Something I noticed in this game though, was I spent more time actually listening to the voice acting rather than reading and skipping along like other RPGs. I think this was just because of the quicker, more concise storytelling. I rarely felt like I was sitting there doing nothing for minutes on end like in other Team Asano games. Triangle Strategy.
Life from the land behind you. Honestly, a little gratitude would be appreciated.
As previously alluded to, each scenario uses the same grid-based battle system. You move your characters around a little chessboard and put them in position to hit your enemies and avoid their attacks. Every time you move, everything else on the board builds their action meter, the little yellow bar under the blue health bar, and once an enemy's bar fills up, they will either move or use an attack of their own. Unfortunately, the battle system was one of the weaker parts of the game for me. I did not dislike it per se. On paper, I really do think it's a cool idea, but it really didn't nail the execution in my opinion. Most of the characters have a wide variety of moves with unique effects and directions of damage, which is a plus, but I could not help but feel like most of the battles just amounted to me moving my character straight towards the enemy and using my strongest attack without much thought at all. Each attack has a type, so to speak, and each enemy has preset strengths and weaknesses for these types. But this whole mechanic seemed kind of pointless to me because I rarely found myself in a scenario where I did not have a strong attack to use on an enemy. I really didn't feel like I was making smart decisions that led to me winning a battle. I was just using the move the game told me to use and then I just kind of won. Overall, these things made the game feel easier than I hoped or expected the game to be. And by no means do I feel like a game needs to be hard in any way to be satisfying or fun, but the reason this felt especially weird to me was the battle system on paper lends itself to some really fun possibilities with character positioning and attack options. There were only a handful of fights in the game where I felt any pushback or need to think at all. Once again, not necessarily a bad thing, just kind of unexpected. Some of the harder fights did force me to think about where I would move my characters to heal, use an item, and safely attack from, and these fights were genuinely satisfying. I just wish there was more of that and less of me just one-shotting a single enemy on the screen. Live Alive is a game I feel like I can recommend to just about anyone, even those who may not like RPGs. This game doesn't even always feel like an RPG, it is much more nuanced than that. It doesn't have the long, grindy sessions that other RPGs have, and it's almost designed for you to enjoy yourself with something new and different for a couple hours each night. I think that's really cool. The game isn't the longest, but that's also a breath of fresh air to me. Some games just feel long for the sake of being long, but Live Alive doesn't overstay its welcome, which helped me more consistently have fun and be surprised by the gameplay, story, and music. Live Alive is a great game, please play it. And if you aren't sure about it, you can even download the demo and see if it jives with you. The Nintendo Switch has no shortage of games, no shortage of RPGs, and no shortage of Team Asano HD 2D games. But even still, Live Alive feels like required playing.
first spell.
Thanks for watching. I had a great time playing and reviewing this game, and it would mean more than you can realize if you would leave a comment below and let me know what you thought about this review. Good or bad or otherwise, it's all appreciated. If you want to see another review for another Team Asano game from me, check out my Triangle Strategy review from a few months ago. Consider liking the video if you enjoyed this, and if you want to see more, subscribing is free too. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time.